All right, we are live. Hello, chat. Yes, there is a live chat available before it begins because you all can apparently chat before, while I'm still in the studio. Hello, though. I am James Craig. I am an independently published science fiction author, but pertinent to tonight, I also publish an epic fantasy web novel that has plenty of standard, more supernatural tropes such as angels, demons, gods, etc. And I fell into a rather interesting Twitter discussion, which has been swirling around because of a phenomenally good anime right now, which is Frieren Beyond Journey's End. Got a lot of people with their little upset because Frieren did nothing wrong. And that led one way or another into me chatting with Mr. Isaac Young here, who is another author. You want to introduce yourself?
Thank you. I'm Isaac Young. I run a Twitter page. Basically, I discuss science fiction and fantasy. I'm also a science fiction author. I have a Substack. Basically, the post that got this discussion started was I wrote a Twitter thread on how demons can't repent, and for whatever reason, that blew up. Thank you for having me on, James Craig.
Yeah, I thought it made for an interesting conversation. And I like interesting conversations. I'm definitely trying to hit 400 subscribers. So please, viewers, if you are listening to this and you're not subscribed, please, I only need 2 more. Anyways, so there are biblical demons and then there are fictional demons. I think that is the first point that you took issue with, you could say, because you pointed out that a lot of demons in fiction, particularly coming out of anime and such people inspired by anime, are basically yokai, which causes kind of a definitional issue when talking about the fact of, can demons be redeemed? Can they be good guys? Can they be trusted? Should they be purged on sight with full judicial authority? And so on. Because according to the Christian definition of fallen angels and such, you should be quite ruthless with them. Would you agree?
Yes. I would like to preface everything here. I've never seen Frieren.
Don't worry. I can go in and explain everything about Frieren. Hello, Royce from Drink with Crazy. Sort of deal with it. Like you should be having me on for anime discussions. Like, come on.
For some reason, my Twitter thread overlapped with this anime that I had no knowledge of previously, and then I got comments bombarded me about my base take on Frieren or whatever. I had no idea what this was.
Okay, so I think we have some obvious common ground to touch on, which is a lot of fiction has a theme about redeeming demons, and then you kind of look at them; they're not really demons. And that's kind of a chicken or an egg problem, because let's be real here. 99 times out of 100, it's because the male audience wants to have sex with the female demon lady, and it's just like, oh no, we need redemption. We need this to be kosher. We need to move forward with this. This is fine because I want it. And then, but it's not. But they're like literally, like by definition, by behavior and everything, they're not really demons. Agreed?
Definitely. I'd also like to say that my initial tweet was primarily from a Catholic and Christian worldview in regards to how demons are portrayed in literature and fiction. And I do definitely agree with you that the majority of demons as presented in fiction, they're not at all what Catholics and Christians believe are demons. They're basically just another fantasy race in the vast majority of fiction works, just with horns and a tail. Mm-hmm. And that's about it.
Yeah, so to catch you up to speed with the based anime of Frieren the Slayer, that's why actually everyone was talking about it, is because the trend is always for demons to be this sympathetic, understandable race of, superpowered magic people that are at odds with humanity. But at least you can talk with them. And Frieren approaches that and presents that as what it seems to be. And then, so for the record, Frieren is a 1,000-year-old mage that has achieved immense power specifically for the purpose of killing demons, because she knows perfectly well that demons are not people. They are in fact monsters. Did I just break something in my microphone? Am I still coming through?
Yeah, you're still coming through good.
Dude, that was weird. It like exhaled. Anyways, demons in the world of Frieren are a race of magical monsters that evolved out of a species that managed to imitate human vocal cords to croak out help. And the idea was that it would draw in unsuspecting humans to prey on them and eat them. They are, in fact, a predatory species in the world of Frieren that achieve supreme mastery of like a single spell of magic, and that's what makes them so dangerous. And the entire premise of the story, like half the time, is that because they have achieved such a massive competency of sweet talking humans, even though like you, the viewer, get to see that they have no concept of what they're even talking about. They're just saying the right words to win trust and convince humans that they can be reasoned with for the purpose of killing them. And Frieren just shows up and goes, "But you're a demon," and then kills them, which is why everyone's like based, because like you never see that anywhere else. No one else wants to do that. Does that make sense why everyone was bringing the anime up now? It's also because it's like a fantastic anime and will make you very sad.
Yeah. It's difficult for me to comment. Like I'd have to watch it fully to talk about it at length, but I understand the premise you're laying down.
Yeah, but that said, portraying demons as a predator species is also itself not the Christian biblical fallen angel tempters, which you basically never see. No one ever writes stories about those.
Well, I mean, Predator. I guess there's like a parallel there. They're not supposed to eat you; they're supposed to condemn your souls. I guess there's
that's my point. The Frieren demon race is not biblical fallen angels. They use the same term, which you could probably argue is a very bad. It's like a layover from bad translations because in Japan they didn't have a word for demon. They say majin. If you actually listen to what they're saying, magic folk. And the concept of yokai is not the concept of a disembodied life. But then the British show up and they try to translate it to English and they apply a Christian worldview to a different culture. And you get these weird cross-cultural miscommunications. Make sense?
Yeah, it makes sense.
Yeah, so that said, there is a lot of fiction about demons. Although a lot of it is you have to go back a couple hundred years into the Western canon to get into stuff like Faust, for example, which is great, and I recommend reading it, even though most people won't. And unfortunately, you can't really get there's German performances of the play, but I can't find an English performance, which is sad. So, what I want to throw this back on you and point out that under the Christian view of fallen angels who are themselves not human, they are embodiments of life, but not will, in the way that humans have free will, which is why you say they can't be redeemed, because it's part of their nature. For the record, have I taken your stance correctly? Do you agree?
Well, from the Catholic worldview, it's not that angels didn't have free will. As well, our theology teaches at the very beginning of creation, the angels were presented with a choice. They were infused with knowledge of God's plan, and basically they were given a choice either to obey with that plan or rebel. What we refer to as demons are those spirits who chose to rebel. And I can get further into why that decision is permanent if you want.
Yeah, I'm going to ask you to try and defend that, because if that is if you are talking about entities with such a permanent irredeemable aspect to them, my response is then they're not characters in a story, because they essentially aren't responsible for their actions anymore because they don't have the ability to act otherwise. They can be forces of the story, but you can't treat them like you would treat a character.
Um, oh, let me speak to the theology part of that problem before we move on to stories. That
Sure.
would probably help illuminate this. Okay. So basically, in Catholic theology, angels slash demons are a different creature than humans. Their thought process is very different than ours. We're two completely separate species, for lack of a better word. Um, and that follows on to the differences between our decision making. So the reason why angels, when they make a decision, um, it's irrevocable, is because they make decisions, well, different than us. Sorry, I'm circling. So we're first going to have to break down human decision making. So whenever we make a decision, we are using our intellect and our will. Um,
One would hope.
yeah, one would hope. And unfortunately, as human beings, we have very imperfect intellect and wills. So whenever we make a decision, it's very conceivable that, human passions get in the way of that decision. For example, like you're angry or you're sad or you're drunk or you're high, for example. These can impede our decision making. Another reason is that we lacked sufficient knowledge of all the factors involved in that decision and its full consequences. Like you just make a misinformed choice, for example. The difference between humans and angels is that angels do not have these infirmities to their decision making. So whenever they make a decision, they not only have full reason, they have full knowledge of all the factors involved in the decision and its full consequences. So whenever they make a decision, they're doing it with basically full commitment of every single aspect of their being is in that decision. And once they do that, they can't take it back because they've made up their mind essentially.
You are supposing that they have foreknowledge of all possible future states, or rather, I'm going to assume you believe in best possible universe interpretation. Is that correct?
I wouldn't say all future states, but well, I would say that they have knowledge of what their decision means for them and their relationship to God, rather than specifics of how all the future plays out. They understand whether or not they're obeying or disobeying God and where that path will lead them in terms of their internal state.
Doesn't that create a circular issue though when you introduce humans to the equation? However, well, all right, let's say that God is perfect, eternal, outside of time, et cetera, et cetera. It's unchanging, even though clearly changes in the Bible. And angels are of the same essence, eternal, and as in eternal.
Well,
But
we view angels as created just like men are. They're created beings. Only God is eternal.
so you're saying angels can die of old age?
No, I'm saying
Eternal and timeless are different terms.
I'm saying that they had a creation point. They were created.
But they don't have. My understanding of the Catholic theology is they don't have a terminal point.
Well, we don't have a terminal point either, but the way we define finite versus eternal is always was, always is, always will be, whereas we're created at a specific point. We're finite, whereas God is infinite. That might seem
That
like
makes the mathematician in me cringe and want to scream at you that's terrible nomenclature. Because okay, so we souls, even if we continue existing after getting stripped out of the body, which informs our decision making process. So you then get the question of, are you still you if you don't have your body? even if we do continue for forever from here, that is an infinite time. So infinite does not need to
Well,
go forward
infinite
and
my
back. There are an
fair
infinite
enough.
number of positive numbers as well as there are an infinite number of numbers. And in fact, there is their exact same amount of infinite.
Fair enough, but they're created beings much as we are. That was my original point. Is that they had a definite beginning point, whereas God does not have a definite beginning point. That was my only.
Right. So, but the thing is that even in the Catholic worldview, the relationship, you go back to the fall, they cannot possibly understand what the future state of their existence will be because there is an unknowable element. And perhaps we're just going to get into why I describe myself as a Christian heretic, because I believe the by definition, if humans have free will, then you can't know the future state because then it's not free will. I know that most people just dogmatically say, "No, you can know it. And you still just get to make the same decision. It's still free will." And I just think that's stupid. So, given that mortals exist, humans exist, uh, with free will, the dynamic is going to change. So the idea that they understand it with full knowledge of their being for all time is a little silly.
Or could you elaborate which part you think is silly?
That they are incapable of ever looking at the new current state and reevaluating their actions to achieve whatever their aims or desires are.
I mean, if their aims are to basically cause destruction and havoc as much as they feasibly can, I don't see why that like that's what a demon is that it sets out to achieve the worst possible outcome because it wants to.
Then that's going to bring me back to why I wanted to talk about them in stories. That is not a entity with action. You could almost argue that they don't have moral responsibility because if all they can do with all their being is destroy, then they would properly be compared to like a wildfire.
I mean, there is a certain trope in fiction as demons being forces of nature, but they still they are moral agents in that they did make a choice at a specific time, and is for the discussion in demons and literature.
Yeah, in
What I would
literature.
say to that end is that the vast majority of fiction today just has demons as being surrogate humans.
Well, you
Whereas,
understand why that is, right?
oh, sorry.
You understand why they do that, right?
Yeah, I understand. Well, we probably have different theories for why that is. You can go first if you want to.
Because the redemption, it's not the redemption of demons that matters, it's the redemption of bad people that matters.
Yeah,
The worst possible person still has a path to redemption.
I would also add into that statement that the idea of demons itself has been deconstructed to the point where we view spiritual entities as the same as human beings. But that's just me looking at how
I mean, humanity has been doing that for the last 10,000 years. That's why we have gods of lightning.
Yeah, but
everything gets put into the framework of humans because that's how that is our nature is to project ourselves onto the world around us.
Yeah, it's fair. I think it's wrong that no one should look at a dog and project. At least in real life, you can do whatever you want in fiction, but at least in real life, you shouldn't look at a dog and project human notions onto how a dog thinks.
Do you have dogs?
Yes, I have a golden retriever, but I don't look at a golden retriever and think to myself, "Oh yeah, uh, she thinks exactly the same way that I do."
Well, no, not exactly, but I would question your neuro. There's a stupid psychological term. I'd accuse you of being a psychopath if you had a dog and didn't think that they had the same emotional framework as humans.
I think they have emotions, but are you? I- There's no contest that dogs do not employ reason the same way humans do.
Not to the same extent because they lack the mental capacity to simulate enough of the world and its consequences.
Well,
But like you cannot tell me my dog doesn't understand, for example, how who she can roughhouse with and who she can't in order to not hurt people.
yeah, but as soon as we get to concepts such as language or abstract reasoning, all that's out the window. They think differently than we do. Like they're on a different level, even though there is some common ground between us and animals.
Okay, so given that statement, I'm not sure it's even possible to argue that because yeah, you can't have a conversation with your dog.
Sorry, you broke up a little bit there.
Given the way you phrase that, there's no you can't even really respond to that because yes, obviously you cannot have a conversation with a dog.
My only point is that dogs are fundamentally different than human beings in the way we think. It's just the very way our brains are wired is fundamentally different, and you shouldn't project human ideas onto a dog in real life, such as just reasoning capacity, um, and so forth.
How much animal science have you studied?
Not very, but I don't need animal science to know that my golden retriever doesn't exactly is
Okay, so are you
exactly
aware that
on the same level.
researchers successfully taught monkeys how to run a barter economy that turned into rampant prostitution, like actual money exchanging prostitution in order for money for food and favors?
So I'm not.
Like they
You're
also
going to have
proved
a tough
that
time. Okay.
animals are able to understand fair treatment between each other, which is one of the fundamental moral pillars that humans function on.
All right. So for the first point, in regards to animals, I, you're going to have a tough time convincing me that they're actually doing abstract reasoning and not just association.
No,
I
it's
mean, no one
actually the other way. It's
contests that.
humans typically aren't doing abstract reasoning. In fact, most of the time, you make a moral judgment about whether an action is right or wrong. You have made your decision before you're aware you've made the decision. So that's why I
You're breaking
laughed
up again.
earlier when you
Sorry, my
said that
Wi-Fi is
humans use
spotty.
intellect and will because they don't. You can
Sorry, you broke
retroactively
up again.
change your behavior, but you will make a subconscious decision first.
I agree that the subconscious has a huge role to play in this, and I agree that the vast majority of our decision making is influenced by those factors. But we still have intellect and reason.
Sure.
It's not all completely subconscious.
Yeah, but the intellect is more often than not just justifying your subconscious decision.
Mm, I'm 50-50 on that one.
So you can basically catch ideologues with weird questions. For example, because this is the book I'm advertising that a lot of people should read is The Righteous Mind by Jonathan Haidt. He did actual moral psychology studies on why people don't agree and came to the conclusion that there are 5 different ways that things are moral, right and wrong. And you can create situations where you are trying basically a trolley problem where you are weighing one against the other. And what he found out was that not everyone has the same weighting between them, and they aren't aware of that. And it also lines up almost perfectly with political parties, which is why you just completely talk past each other. Where it's just like a far leftist is just like, yes, absolutely, we should ban liter-sized soft drinks from fast food parts. It's bad for people. Then a libertarian goes, you're insane. If I want to buy a liter of pop, I should be able to buy a liter of pop. Who are you to say I can't do that just because it's harming myself? Make sense? Makes sense so far?
Yeah, I'm aware of the studies. I think I was reading an article the other day about how conservatives were more likely to favor in groups and leftists were more likely to favor out groups.
Yep.
And that determines a lot of the decision making.
Yeah, it's risk assessment is different between people. And that's not something you reason yourself into or out of. That is almost entirely on the subconscious level.
So we have these intuitions which guide our basic instincts, but reason is still a huge component in how those instincts play out. Just how policy is made, what are we going to do next? The intellect isn't entirely beholden to the subconscious. At least I don't believe it is.
Not entirely. Like a competent human should always be able to override their instinct. But if you have lived your life outside of a rock, you know that it's not typically what happens.
Yeah, we're in agreement there.
So we definitely got off subject on that. I am going to reiterate my point that in fiction, when a demon is portrayed, particularly in a redemption story, it's being called a demon because it's a stand-in for a person who has gone down the wrong path. And you should be right here saying, well, yes, as a Catholic or a Christian, I fundamentally believe in the redemption of every human soul as possible.
Yes. All right. To circle back to my critique, it's okay. So as a Catholic, I believe that demons are a very real phenomenon. And when I see modern literature, like we're both in agreement that demons in literature and fiction are basically treated as bad humans. Am I correct in that assessment?
Well, I'm basically yes, but I'm saying that's a good thing, and you're saying that's a bad thing.
Yeah, the reason I'm saying is that it's a bad thing is because I believe demons are a very real phenomenon. The demonic is a real phenomenon, and that to confuse our language on that is dangerous because it essentially opens us up to ideas that are inimical to human welfare.
Such as?
Again, as a Catholic, I believe that demons are a real phenomenon. Let's say messing with stuff like Ouija boards or various forms of the occult. That is,
I'm aware,
in my religion, that's a pathway to...
Demons corrupt through knowledge, typically, right? They can corrupt circumstances, but a demon cannot force you into evil.
No, a demon cannot force you into evil, but it's not just knowledge. It's also like you have desires such as lust, greed, envy.
Well, yeah, if you want to destroy a man, give him everything he wants, right?
Sorry?
If you want to destroy a man, give him everything he wants. Have you not heard that before?
Sorry. You're breaking up. I apologize.
Okay,
my Wi-Fi is spotty.
Okay, bear with me, chat. I'm going to bust out the old microphones. I think I may have busted this.
Yeah, I can't hear you anymore. It's still completely quiet on my end. It's still quiet. Whoop, I can hear you again.
We're gonna have to deal with it. Okay, where were we? Something about demons talking corruption, offering people their desires. The thing is that, all right. So here's what challenge. What can a demon do that a sufficiently wealthy and powerful, well-connected, and intelligent human can't?
So I would say, first and foremost, is that demons in Catholic theology have an intimate understanding of human nature far more than we do. Their intellects are superior than ours in many ways.
Sure.
So the average demon is far smarter than just any human generally. So that's one thing to take in consideration. Another thing is
Elon
that
Musk is far smarter than most humans as well.
yeah, sure. The second thing is that they're well, I wouldn't say they're not omnipresent, but they're able to basically communicate with one another, and so they have access to information that no human could possibly get, even if even if they work for the NSA, for example. Like they're all demons in Catholic theology are always present. They're always watching, and they're always able to reach out into a human mind to tempt them.
Well, to a human mind, not into a human mind.
Yeah, but there is cases of possession where they gain direct intimacy into a human mind.
And depending on who you ask, that is a end state of the entire corruption process if it happens at all. But the reason I've been poking you on this problem is because the opening gambits, essentially, let's call them, of the temptation process are really not particularly supernatural. Or rather, they don't really require anything supernatural, except that they are theoretically more potent because they're coming from, a super intelligence.
I mean, humans are fallen beings, so we're both in agreement there that temptation does not and probably does not come from supernatural means. Some to a majority of the time, we're both in agreement there.
Yeah. So just to keep the point true here in this conversation, when you write a story, to get real high level, stories are reflections of reality, right? They are supposed to speak truth about living life. You're supposed to be able to map yourself into and your experiences of how things work and how people behave and what is right and wrong and honorable and dishonorable, et cetera, and understand a simulated world to then live that simulation essentially and come back to reality at a crazy high level of art and entertainment. Do you agree with me there?
Yes.
Yeah. So, I've said before, I'm going to say again, I don't see a problem with treating demons in fiction as essentially humans, because you are far more likely, far, like infinitely more likely, to encounter a bad person who is treating you demoniacally than an actual demon. Like even under the every traditional dogmatic Catholic interpretation of reality, you are more likely to encounter bad people. So arming people with the correct attitude, essentially, for people is significantly more appropriate.
Well, then, all right. There are 2 points I want to address with that. Number one is, like, from a secular perspective, there's no reason not to treat demons as just bad people. Again, my critiques are from a Catholic perspective. Number two, in that
we should
if we're
probably stay
discussing
focused that we're talking about demons getting redeemed. Demons as bad guys, we're not in disagreement.
So for my second point, so the problem from the Catholic perspective is the conflation of the two. If you were writing a story where a person was dealing with another bad person, and that's the conflict of the story, that's perfectly fine. That's actually, it's probably the vast majority of literature, now that I'm thinking of it. But the issue is the confusion of terminology. That's the primary thing. As a Catholic, that's the primary issue, is because when people are conflating demons with just bad people, that underestimates their threat and it misunderstands what they are, and it opens up people to being sympathetic to just to the demonic. And there's a whole host of knock-on effects in the culture. Just people adopting demonic symbology. You've probably seen same music videos I have, where some famous pop star is doing extremely degenerate things on Satan's throne, for example. I've seen a few music videos there. Like that's the sort of issue that the critique comes to, is it's opening up the human soul to ideas that the human soul should not be interacting with. Well, I wouldn't say ideas, but just forces. The issue is relativism. It all comes back to the idea that there is no such thing as evil, which is basic. That's synonymous with the demonic. Like evil and the demonic, that's basically, you can interchange those terms. The issue is if we deconstruct the notion of evil into just some social construction, that is going to have catastrophic consequences on the individual and society at large.
I don't think presenting demons as being capable of redemption is normalizing demonology and demonic ideas. I think it's actually quite the opposite. Now, the music industry using Moloch as a fashion statement, I think, is quite a different problem, which is a little outside of scope here.
I mean, like, I see it as a direct consequence of the former issue, is that basically you're turning the demonic into a sympathetic figure.
I think that has far more to do with establishing cultural hegemony. You take symbols and parade them around in whatever context is effective in order to grind down the people you have conquered.
Yeah, I agree there. It is in part humiliation ritual. I also have to note that I also think it has origins in just if not the demonic, then at least a horrible, misguided understanding of what good and evil is.
Well, to be fair, you're probably going to get your hackles up when I say this, but good and evil is not well defined. And you can't define it well as a human.
I mean, that's just going to have to be a point of disagreement. Like, I accept a theology, you accept a different theology. That's just going to be.
So there's a difference between there is good and evil versus good and evil can actually accurately and reliably be understood. And I'll point back to it's really trivial to create trolley problems that just don't make sense. To say one is the good answer, one is the bad answer.
I mean, if
and not to mention, like, is it good to enjoy something today and pay for it tomorrow, or is it good to pay for it today and enjoy it tomorrow? When you start adding timescale effects, like for example, is it good to prop up a failing economy where starvation is rampant? Sounds like it. Is it? But 100 years later, the population is now 10 times higher, and there are more people starving to death than ever because, well, they didn't die, and the population grew exponentially. Was that a good action? On what timescale was that good?
So if there are a couple of things here. If we cannot treat good and evil as sensible concepts that we can understand and extrapolate to our decision making, if we can't do that, then that sort of renders the entire discussion moot on whether or not good and evil exist. Because if we can't understand good and evil, then there's just no point in talking about it because we can't understand it. So the discussion itself, if we're to have a discussion at all,
I don't think that's a categorically true statement.
I mean, if we can't understand good and evil, and
we can't understand fluid dynamics either. We don't know why planes fly.
Okay, I don't know about the airplanes thing.
All right. Okay, here's the engineer here.
Okay.
The equation we have for viscosity and fluid dynamics and forces does not compute. We have no mathematical solution for why an airfoil is the correct wing shape. We just know that it is because we can see that it works. And that is the only layer that we understand it on, even though theoretically there is some mathematical solution. There has to be because it works and we live in an intelligible universe. But so just because we can't solve the equation doesn't mean we can't build an airplane.
All right, that's fair. I would also like to make a distinction here. In terms of really, there needs to be a distinction between simple, matter-of-fact understandings of reality, such as 2 + 2 = 4, 3 + 3 = 6, and then extremely complicated mathematical equations, engineering problems that have solutions. We just don't understand the full complexity of the issue. And I would posit that morality is the same way, in that the vast majority of moral problems we can make sense and understand. And there may be issues that we cannot solve, not necessarily because there isn't an answer to those problems, but because our intellect is not capable, well, not capable, but our intellect isn't able enough to grasp the full issue.
Right. That's why I say good and evil is not well defined.
I would say for 95% of the time, it is pretty well.
Perhaps in a single human's life and a single human's interactions.
And I think that's mostly what it needs to be. If you're a religion and you're laying down the moral law, you're not necessarily concerned with the high complexity issues that the 0.0001% of the population may face. You're looking at what are the issues that the average person faces 95% of the time in their daily lives, and can we construct a set of solutions for those issues? And for those people who have to deal with the issues of the 0.0001%, we do have philosophers and theologians who have delved extensively into that topic.
Okay, so here's one for you. How does your theology handle snowplow parents?
You'd have to snowplow?
You've never heard the term?
No, I haven't.
A parent that solves all of their kids' problems. They're helping their kid, aren't they? It's good to take care, to make sure your kid isn't being bullied, to make sure he gets on the sports team, to make sure that his teacher is grading him fairly and that he is getting the time he needs, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. It's good to do all of those things, aren't they? And then you end up with an 18-year-old dysfunctional loser because they had all their problems solved for them and they were never, forced to deal with the consequences of their own actions. So that's just one example of, it seems like you're always making the right action, and then you end up with the wrong result.
I mean, I'd say the outcome speaks for itself in that there are plenty of actions that seem tempting to us in the moment, but are ultimately wrong. And I'd categorize that particular example under a temptation rather than that Christianity preaches that you have to protect your child from all adversity, because I don't believe that's what Christianity teaches. I don't think that kind of parenting doesn't stem from classical Catholic teaching.
All right, so we are coming up at the very end here. We did start at the beginning. This was supposed to be a 1-hour stream. We have gone way in the weeds in very random directions. I do want to reiterate from the start, though, that a story where demons are bad and irredeemable monsters and they deserve to be killed judiciously and they should never be trusted is still a based story. We in agreement? Hold on, are you really about to say don't kill demons?
No, I'm not about to say don't kill demons. It's just I would prefer demons be treated theologically accurately rather than this weird show that I've never heard of. Again, that I would need to watch before I comment on it. Because if I say something about this show and I don't have all the context, I'm afraid someone's gonna come at me on Twitter and say, "Hey, Isaac Young, why didn't you think of X, Y, and Z in relation to this argument?" That's the only reason I hesitate, is because I need to watch the full show.
Well, if you don't want to watch anime, you could instead check out my free web novel. It is an epic fantasy web novel that has about 5 novels worth of content entirely for free, online, available now. Link in the description, where I actually genuinely have biblical tier demons in it that are incredibly dangerous. And I think you would particularly appreciate it. Although most of the story is about human wars and stabbing bad guys to death with swords, because it's a sword and sorcery and it's great.
That sounds interesting. I'll take a look.
You want to give yourself a closing plug here? I know you don't actually write this kind of supernatural fantasy or Christian / Catholic stories. You say you're a science fiction author, but whatever.
I mean, I do write from a Catholic perspective. I haven't touched on demons quite yet, though.
Yeah, like Canticle for Leibowitz is a Christian science fiction story that has no supernatural elements, as far as I can recall.
Yeah, it's mostly realistic, though. There are probably there's 1 or 2 elements that strike me as it treads the line between it's plausibly realistic, plausibly supernatural. But that's another topic. I mean, that was in reference to the Wandering Jew.
Oh, good God, I forgot about him.
Yeah, and also the second head on, I forget her name, the old lady.
Oh yes, the virgin birth that happens in there.
I don't know if it's.
That's what it was meant to be.
But it's irrelevant to the discussion. But there's one or few moments that seem to tread the line between there, but that's neither here nor there.
Fair point. I apologize on that one.
I'd plug in my Substack. Link is in the description, I believe. I'd also like to shout out to my book. You can find it on my it's in my Substack. A link to it anyway. It's called The Matryoshka Divide. It's a space opera. A signal is detected on the outer edge of the galaxy, and an expedition is launched in search of it. Find out more on the Amazon page. But that's all I got to plug right now.
Fair enough. I wish you the best of luck with your Substack and growing it and so on. Thank you for coming on this conversation. I had a lot of fun with it. I like these kinds of things.
Yeah.
I hope you enjoyed the conversation.
I did. Thank you. Thank you for having me on. I really appreciate it.
Yep. Chat. Thank you. Please like, subscribe. Did I get my 2 subscribers? Come on. I'm at 398. Come on. I'm refreshing the page. God damn it. Chat. You let me down. You must already all be subscribed. Till then. I'll probably be streaming video games this weekend because, yeah. See you.
Thank you.